Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that's, if you're finding that you aren't losing weight, but you're still doing these habits, things are progressing now and in the future. But first, before I do that, just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Again, I want to continue to get this information out to more people. So if you think it would be helpful for other people, please do that. And I appreciate everybody who listens. Next, if you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff, and that's where I'm most active on social media. And if you have any questions on the podcast or not sure about something that I talked about or don't agree with me or do agree with me or whatever it is, that's the best place to reach out to me there. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So I want to frame this as if you were doing these things, positive changes are happening now and setting you up for future success, even if you aren't losing weight. I wanted to do this because I think sometimes we need to step back and understand that while you may not be hitting your nutrition goals perfectly, this is a big thing that I see with clients is if they don't feel like they're hitting everything to a T, they're not losing weight, they're not seeing progress, right? And that can put a lot of pressure on them. And it also can lead to this kind of thought process around, well, if I'm not perfect with it, now I'm not going to do anything. And that can lead to this just kind of negative spiral, right? So chances are, so long as you aren't completely giving up or giving 0% effort, you are making some sort of positive change to your body comp, health, and overall well-being. Again, things may be a bit slower than you want. And again, we work on this with clients to dial these things in and speed up results, but positive change is still happening if you're doing these things. So these are like my foundational things that I try to get with each client, because really at the end of the day, if we're doing these things, we're making like positive changes are happening. And also not only now, but they're going to help set you up in the future for maybe easier fat loss. And so I want to go over what those are. All right. So the first one is lifting weights at least 2 to 3 times per week. This is going to help you build muscle and it's going to improve your metabolism, right? So again, at the very least, say you're eating in a way that, hey, maybe you're not dropping weight, but you're lifting weights. Again, this is adding some muscle and you're at least maintaining your muscle. And this is not only going to help you build muscle, which is going to help your overall look. It's going to help you maintain your weight much easier, but we're also improving our metabolism by doing this, right? Muscle is very energy costly to build and maintain. And so again, we also have that added benefit, which kind of goes back into the benefit of it helping maintain your body weight. So look, at the end of the day, maybe you're not losing the weight you want, but you're lifting weights at least 2 to 3 times per week. Again, that's enough to where, hey, you're going to be seeing a positive change now, but also this is going to help you in the future as well. So again, that's one of the foundational ones. Next, we're aiming for at least 6,000 steps per day, right? This is going to help increase your energy expenditure, and it's going to help you with your appetite regulation. So again, if you're not necessarily seeing the weight loss that you want, understand that by being more active, just focusing on more movement, you're going to increase how many calories you burn. So that could either make it a little bit easier to get into a deficit, or it's going to allow you to eat a little bit more food and continue to maintain your weight. But moving at least 6,000 steps per day also is going to help from an appetite regulation standpoint. So you're also going to be able to control how much you eat much easier. It's more likely that you are going to eat in an amount that's relative to how much energy you're expending. Whereas if we get less than that, it's easier to overeat. You may find that you can't get full. So again, aiming for at least 6,000 steps per day can help offset some of that. Not to mention, it's also just great for overall health to stay active. If you're super sedentary, that's not going to be great from a, say, insulin sensitivity standpoint, and just overall health mentally as well too, but also from a gut health. Getting some movement in, especially after walks, can be super helpful from that standpoint. So again, if this comes down to, hey, you're lifting weights, you're also getting 6,000 steps per day. Hey, there's some positive things that are going on, even if you're not perfect with your nutrition. 3, again, we're prioritizing sleep. So that's another big one here. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing sleep. If we're doing that, that's going to, one, help with appetite regulation. You're going to have less cravings. You're going to be more motivated. You're going to feel better overall. You're going to see more. It's going to be easier to see change in your body composition when we're prioritizing sleep. So again, if this is something where you may not be dropping weight currently, but you're prioritizing sleep and getting better, that's going to not only help you see positive changes now, but also help set you up for future success, because getting into a deficit to lose body fat is going to be much easier and much more sustainable, especially if you don't have those hunger and cravings, you don't feel tired, your motivation's higher, right? All those things start to add up. So again, this is something where even if you aren't dropping weight, but you're prioritizing sleep and you're getting good sleep, you're improving it, you're going to have positive health changes, as well as, again, helping set you up for the future from a fat loss perspective. Maintaining a balanced caloric intake. So again, we're avoiding large calorie surpluses or large deficits, as these can negatively impact muscle and fat ratios. So again, we don't have to be absolutely perfect with nutrition, but we just want to make sure we're maintaining a balanced kind of caloric intake, right? So again, we're not in these like large surpluses where we just go crazy with it. We don't have those days where you're just like, you know what, screw it. And then those days lead into weeks like that. but we're also not having days where we're like really limiting food intake as well, right? So we're like yo-yoing from day to day there, right? So again, if we're maintaining some sort of balance there, and this is why I like to have clients aim for a range of calories, because that kind of helps them get within, it puts up guardrails, right? Versus feeling like you need to be absolutely perfect with everything. Again, if we're maintaining that kind of balanced caloric intake, we're prioritizing sleep, we're weight training, we're getting movement in, again, you're going to be seeing some positive changes now and in the future as well too, from a body composition standpoint, even if you aren't losing weight like you want. Keeping up with a reasonable protein intake for muscle growth and satiety, making sure that we're also eating enough protein. Again, if we're weight training, getting some movement, prioritizing sleep, maintaining a somewhat moderate calorie balance, and we're eating enough protein, again, that's going to help with you from a muscle building standpoint. You're going to complete that process. You're going to have more muscle. We already talked about the benefits of muscle, but also protein can help with satiety. So now you can see where if we're prioritizing sleep, we are getting movement in, like these are all going to be, and then now we're getting enough protein in. This is also going to help. You're less likely to overeat calories because it's easier for you to manage your caloric intake. You're less likely to overeat. You crave less. So again, these things all have multiple benefits and they all kind of work together. So again, keeping up with a reasonable amount of protein. So we're looking at around 1 gram per pound of body weight there. And then lastly, you're monitoring and managing your biofeedback. We're looking at stress levels, making sure we're managing that, monitoring it. If it's high, hey, I know that my hunger and cravings might be a little bit higher, but here's some things that help me lower my stress levels. Hunger, we're looking at that. We're making sure that it's not too high, because we know, because again, if it's super high, then you're more likely to overeat and be in a large calorie surplus. Libido, we want to make sure that's in a good spot. If that's off, that's something to look into. It's, hey, there's probably something along the lines that can be improved there. We want to make sure that we have plenty of energy throughout the day. If we don't, again, that means we need to look into something. Is it a sleep thing? Is it movement thing? What is it? Digestion. Again, we want to make sure that's in a good spot. So if these things are improving, again, even though you may not be losing weight, you in the future are setting yourself up to be more likely to lose weight, right? So that was my main thing here that I wanted to get across with this, right? Even if you aren't nailing every aspect of your nutrition, training, and lifestyle, these are setting you up for positive changes in body composition, health, and overall well-being. So again, I just see a lot of people put too much pressure on their nutrition and feeling like they need to be absolutely perfect with it. And again, we don't have to only eat clean foods all the time, right? We have some wiggle room here. And again, if we're doing these things, there's still some positive changes that are going on, even if you aren't necessarily dropping body weight. So I just want to give a few extra thoughts on nutrition and being quote unquote perfect, right? The longer I coach clients to improve their body comp, the more I realize the key is helping them limit those days when their caloric intake gets crazy high. If you can decrease those peaks, you're heading in the right direction, right? I think if we can just if we can limit those days and those peaks when we do that, you're in a much better spot. And so that's the big thing. We don't need to be absolutely perfect to where you hit 2,123 calories every day. It's just, hey, we want to be within this range. We want to improve these things that I talked about. And then we just really want to avoid those days where we just say F it more than anything. And again, maybe you have those days from time to time, but we want to make sure that we limit the magnitude of them and how often they happen. So again, stop thinking of nutrition choices in isolation. What you do over time plays a much larger role in your body comp and overall health. A 7 out of 10 diet that you can sustain over longer periods of time is better than a 10 out of 10 diet that you can only sustain in shorter periods of time. And again, this is one where I see a lot of people put too much pressure on like specific nutrition choices. Oh, hey, I had this. Hey, I had this meal out. And then they get down on themselves like, hey, it was a bad week because I did that. It's okay. That's not going to be the thing that's going to ruin you. It's going to be the rest of the time, right? So again, if we can have a diet where we're 7 out of 10, versus 10 out of 10 that you can only do for, say, a couple days at a time. And then it's a 0 out of 10 for multiple days. Again, that's going to be much better. And you're going to see much better health and body comp improvements with that 7 out of 10 diet. Again, maybe we push it to 8 to 9 out of 10 over time. But again, if you're struggling with maintaining that 10 out of 10, again, a 7 out of 10 would be better. And like I said, what you do over time is going to play a much larger role than anything that you can do in the short term. And then lastly, stop thinking of weight loss as the only way you can make progress. This is hurting you now and long-term from a body composition, overall health and well-being perspective. Again, weight loss is part of the picture. It's especially if you need to lose body fat, we do want to see that weight trend down over time, but it's not the only thing we want to look at. There's other things to look at, and we need to make sure that our only focus isn't on just dropping body weight, right? There's other things, progress pictures, measurements, all the things I mentioned today in combination. So I hope this gives you some insight into maybe reframing your thoughts around your nutrition and how, again, if you're doing these things and maybe your weight isn't trending down as you would like, you are seeing some positive change happen here. And again, hopefully this gives you some insight into, like I said, just reframing how you feel about your nutrition and again, maybe again, being closer to that 7 out of 10 than feeling like you need to be at an exactly 10 out of 10 for short periods of time. So that's it for this episode. Let me know if you have any questions on it. And again, if you feel like you need help with this specifically, that's what my free 30-minute strategy call is for. We dive into what your goals are, what your biggest challenges are, and then we figure out how we can fix them and get you rolling in the right direction. If you have any questions on that, the link to it is in the show notes. That's it for this episode, and I'll chat with you next time. I appreciate everybody who listens there. So if you have taken anything away from this podcast, if you could just give back and let other people be able to listen to this as well.